Cancer Unmasked 360 is where we unmask the truth about cancer from every angle. This is a place created for men and women, patients, survivors, caregivers, and advocates who are navigating the cancer journey and looking for real answers, real conversations, and hope. Here we talk about it all: the diagnosis, the emotions, the treatments, the resources, the tests, the nutrition, the mental health, and the faith it takes to keep going. Cancer Unmasked 360 exists to tell the truth, break stigmas, empower patients, caregivers, loved ones with knowledge, community, engagement, so no one has to walk this journey uninformed or alone. The content shared on Cancer Unmasked 360 is for educational and inspirational purposes only. Although some of the guests may be healthcare professionals, this podcast does not provide personalized medical advice. Please consult your healthcare provider regarding your individual healthcare concerns and treatment diagnosis. Welcome to another episode of Cancer Unmasked 360. I'm your host, Desi Waters, and tonight is going to be so special. We have a phenomenal woman that's going to take us through her journey as a caregiver. Her name is Kenyette, and boy, does she have a story to tell. Kenyette, hi.
Hello, everyone.
How are you?
Oh, I'm blessed and I'm so grateful to be here, Desi. Thank you so much
Oh,
for the
oh
opportunity.
my goodness, girl, the honor is mine. I know a little bit about your story, and I can't wait till my audience hears your journey. It is so powerful. Look, I like to start off by knowing a little bit about you beyond the caregiver role. How would you introduce yourself beyond being a caregiver in the season that you were a caregiver?
I'm a woman of faith, um, effervescent, bubbly, delightful. Um, I love life, I love people, and I'm just one of my callings, I believe, is to nurture people and to help people through crisis and to bring the presence of God into very difficult situations. And I have a lot of experience with that from my own upbringing and my own walk, finding peace through very difficult situations and being able to teach others how to walk through those situations. And I find that I am in training to be a chaplain, and I find that one of the most sacred things is to walk with a person through their suffering. It's like holy ground to be able to be allowed into someone's hard place and just to sit with them and just to walk them through and be their strength. And sometimes that's not doing anything but just being there. And
Wow.
so I just enjoy being that support.
So it's
We
honest to say that you had many roles.
many roles, yes, yes.
You had many. That's what I'm talking about. I know a little bit about you, and yes, you hold many roles. Can you tell us who you were caring for and what type of cancer they had?
Yes, it was my ex-husband, and he had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he had it for several years. He is cancer free now, but as we go into this interview, it's going to be such an amazing testimony.
Yes. Now, before the diagnosis, did it catch you all off guard? Was he a man who got regular checkups? How did he find out? How did you all find out?
Well, non Hodgkin's is a cancer of the lymphatic system. And so he started to develop like lumps on the neck. That was the first thing. And so with lymphoma, any of the lymphomas, it's like a watch and wait. It's not like something you treat aggressively, like a breast cancer or any tumor that needs to be removed, since it's through your body, through the lymphatic system. And so it was a watch and wait. And so pretty much we had to wait until it got really bad, till um, the tumors and like the puffiness started to become overwhelming. And so he had it, the cancer, for maybe 3 years under the watch and wait. And then by that third year, it got really bad and he started chemo.
So let me ask, how did you all learn that he had it? I mean, did he go to the doctors and he found out, or was the lump he saw and then he was later diagnosed?
We saw the lumps, and then he drove for a living, and so he did a DOT physical, and they said you need to go to the doctor. So I made the appointment. I was there with him through everything, and I was with him when we got the news, and it was devastating.
That's what I
Um,
was getting ready to ask.
yes,
What was your first thoughts when you
for
heard the
me,
word?
it was very, I would, I'm a woman of faith, so I was like, we're going to conquer this. He was
Wow.
very upset. He got angry. So, he stayed a little angry for a while during the watch and wait period. And then sometimes, because that watch and wait period, you just want to forget about it. So sometimes we forgot about it. You know, he would do his checkups, and it wasn't until it started to get bad that we just knew what we were going to do. We had thought about doing alternative treatments,
Mhm.
but then we just said we're going to do the chemo.
Wow. Now, men sometimes handle things differently than women.
Mhm.
And I am a firm believer that you let somebody walk out their own journey. You
Yes,
can't put it on them. How many years were you married before you all had to deal with this?
I would say about 15 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What did caregiving actually look like for you day to day with him?
I was wore out. I
Wow.
also had my mom at the time, and once he started chemo, that's when the burden really um, became intense, because he had two chemo treatments a week. And praise the Lord, I was able to telework. Also, I had my mom, and my mom, was going through hospice, and
Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
it was intense. And so I would just shut it down. When we got home from chemo, I would have made some soup, and we both got into bed. Wherever he went through, I was there with him. And I can remember it was one time I wasn't teleworking, and I was at home, and at work, and he called me, and he had taken his medicine and made him real dizzy. He said, "Oh wow, I feel like the room is spinning." He was just, getting a really bad reaction, and he
Mm.
fell asleep on the phone. And I was in DC, and we lived in Virginia, probably a good 2 hour commute away. And you should have seen me trying to get down I-95. And I said, what the work that I do, I'm an analyst, so I don't have to be in an office to do that, just as long as I'm on my laptop. So I was able to do that because I didn't want to leave him alone. And he got to a point where he couldn't eat, so I just had to make sure, like, mashed potatoes and Pedialyte, and I pretty much nursed him during his time being ill.
But you were actually nursing two people, not
Yes,
just
yes,
one. I mean,
yes.
I did not even know that about your
Mhm.
journey.
Yes. I
What
just
actually, if anything, fell by the wayside? Because when you are a woman, household, meals, dinner, cleaning, did anything fall by the wayside while you were caring for two sick people?
Me, I
You
fell by the
do.
wayside. I did. I look back and Desi, I'm just like I'm here today because of the Lord. Because after all of that, my health was tanked. I mean, even my eyesight. I went to the eye doctor like maybe a year after everything had calmed down, and they were like, "Oh, your prescription changed. It's better." And I'm like, "I didn't know your eyes could get better."
I
but
just found that out myself recently. I didn't either.
Yes, and so everything I was just, I probably would have been the one that, they would have been saying, "Oh, she was such a hard worker. She just worked herself to death," because my health started to suffer.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that I think we do sometimes as caregivers of loved one. We want to be so there for the person or everybody else that
Mhm.
we sometimes forget about ourselves.
Yes.
What was one thing about caregiving that you felt most unprepared for?
I stepped up to the challenge. I knew that God was going to do what God was going to do. And I was ready to put on my armor as his wife, and I went into battle. And I would go in my prayer closet sometimes at night, and I didn't come out until the morning. And I held him before the Lord and turned my face to the wall. And I remember I had a friend whose husband had, I want to say colon cancer. And that's a very difficult cancer. And we were both praying for our husbands at the same time. And her husband passed away. And I can just remember that feeling like, oh my God, I don't want to lose him.
Mm,
And I would fast and I would pray. And, you know, I, I don't regret any of it because I did what a wife should do
yes,
for her
yes.
husband, so I don't regret anything. I remember it was one time he was hospitalized. He was on Rituxan, that's a chemotherapy, and a bendamustine chemotherapy. And that just, I mean, it tears your stomach up. And so he developed ulcers, and he was so sick. He couldn't eat. I mean, I just had to just kind of just take care of him like a baby. So he ended up in the hospital, and I can remember it was getting ready to be an ice storm. So um, he was at the hospital. I had to come home and get things we needed. And I can remember tripping over his shoes because he did not put stuff away. He did not clean up after himself. I was a very
Okay.
traditional wife. And so I can remember tripping over his shoes. And normally I would have said, "Oh man, you leave your shoes in the middle of the floor." I came home, I just burst out crying. Like, "Lord, thank you for those shoes in the middle of the floor. I have nothing to complain about. Whatever it is, Lord, I know you can fix it." So I grabbed our stuff and I went back to the hospital. And that was a Christmas. We spent Christmas, I want to say Christmas of 2016 in
Wow.
the hospital. Christmas to New Year's in the hospital.
What
And
do you Go ahead? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut
oh,
you
go
off. Go
ahead. No.
ahead. What do you think people often misunderstand about being a caregiver?
That we have it under control. I'm the type of person that I'm pretty efficient. I'm like, I have 100 irons in the fire, and it looks like I have it together all the time. But, behind the scenes, I'm like, okay, what did I do with this? What did I do with that? And so, just that, like, okay, she must got it together. I remember when a lady one time brought over a chicken soup, a crock pot of chicken soup. And I was so happy because I hadn't prepared anything. And usually, when it was chemo days, he would have one long all day chemo, and then the next very day was a half a day chemo. And then when that half day, I was so, we were both tired after that full 8 hour treatment, that someone stepped up to the plate and said, you know what? It was on Tuesday and Wednesday. They said, I'll take him on Wednesday. And she was a nurse. And so on Wednesdays, she took him to chemo. And I was so grateful because I just got to stay home, and just work and catch up on things. And I was so grateful for that. So just having that break, having a meal, having people call and check and even text, because sometimes I didn't even feel like answering the phone because it's just like I don't want to answer any more questions about how's everything going. He has cancer. My mom's in hospice. My life is falling apart. So, but just
Right.
sometimes a text to say, I'm thinking about you, what just really made me feel good. And especially, those who would say, well, I'm going to take him, or just drop by with something, 'cause
Means
food
the
was a big,
world.
yes,
Means the world.
because I can remember a time, this is after my mom passed. Her funeral was on a Saturday. He had his uh, chemo on that Tuesday, and I didn't fix anything. So I went by and got some egg foo young. Big mistake.
You
Big
made a
mistake.
mistake.
Somebody who came from chemo. Big
Right.
mistake. And so, meals is a big thing, so
Yeah.
very
So I'm glad you touched on that. So he was actually in treatment and you lost your mother.
yes.
So I know it's caregiving for your husband, but what did you have to do for her while you were doing it for him?
I was in would visit in hospice, and she was in hospice at Holy Cross, and I lived.
Okay, she wasn't actually living with you.
No,
Oh,
at
okay.
this time,
Okay.
but still, just going up to Holy Cross from Virginia was like a 3 hour commute with traffic. And I had a coworker who lived in Silver Spring, Maryland, who would let me stay in her basement, and my coworkers would bring food up to the hospital because I would stay for days since it was, such a long commute.
Far
And
away.
then I would go
Yes.
back to home to him. Yeah.
Oh my good. I just really can't even imagine
Yes.
what that does to a person physically, emotionally, and mentally. Can you touch on, you've touched on it a little bit, but can you touch on any of those three to
Yeah.
explain if they impacted you and how?
I would say just you're just on autopilot, and it's just that adrenaline that keeps you going because you're just like, I got to get this done. I got to work. We need health insurance, so I got to work. So I'm working full time. And thank goodness I had, I would say to anybody, just talk to your employer because people are more generous than sometimes we give them. And so I would just say, I need FMLA. I would bring my husband's paperwork, to my supervisor and say, this is his chemo schedule. Can we work something out? And so,
Yeah.
they knew when my mom was in hospice, and I was able to spend latter days with her. So I'm just very grateful that I had a job that accommodated me for that.
Amen to that. Amen to that. You talked a little bit already about you being a woman of faith and how faith played a role in your caring for him. Now, was your husband a man of faith? Was it something you all gripped and walked in together, or
Yes, I would say in the beginning, yes. I mean, we were like we were conference people. We loved a good conference. I mean, we would go away to conferences. It was just such a wonderful um match in my opinion. I mean, no marriage is perfect, but we were on the same plane spiritually. We had some wonderful times. But I will tell you, the diagnosis the illness changed everything for us. And I know that that's not always the case. But for us, uh, it did not turn out, he was healed, praise the Lord. But people don't really understand that life still goes on even with cancer. So you still have all kinds of different dynamics going on, and you still dealing with a person who's terminally ill. Because at this time he was stage 4, and the Lord brought him back from stage 4. And so, you know, it just we had just very hard dynamics, and I had to carry his faith because, like I said before, he was angry. And so, you know, sometimes we don't want to say that some sick people can get mean, but some sick people can get mean.
Well,
And
because sometimes you feel like, what did I do to deserve this? I mean, you go through a lot of, anger to God, even, when you go through it. I've heard many stories like
yeah,
that.
I've had to stop him, like if I was doing something. I mean, he was so sick at times where I had to help him to the bathroom. I had to
Mhm.
help him with, things that probably for a man, his pride,
Yes,
was
yes.
wounded, to have your wife have to, bathe you and change you and do all those
Right,
things. And I just had to say, look, I'm doing the best I can. And you're not going to talk to me like that because, remember that episode in Tyler Perry's Diary of a Bad Black Woman when she left her husband in the wheelchair? I'm like, don't talk to me like that. And so
right,
we had those moments. And I just had to say, he's angry, he's sick. Let me just go, you know, up to Walmart for a minute, cool off, and come back.
right,
So
right.
I had to take the higher road. I had to bite my tongue a lot because you don't want to be yelling and screaming at a sick person, and cussing out somebody who's ill. So I had to take
Right.
the higher road and like, look, don't talk to me like that. I'm here to help you. And he would calm down. He would apologize and he would calm down, but he was very frustrated because he couldn't do the things that he needed to do. I was, as for 5, 6 years, he couldn't work with the chemo schedule that he had. So I had to take care of everything. And to hear me say, no, we can't buy that, so that resentment came in. So it really, it's a lot of dynamics that goes into a husband or wife who's taking care of a partner who's terminally ill. When you make your marriage vows, for sickness and health, this is what it looks like. It means like,
It could very
it's,
well.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
What did you do did you see anybody about your mental well-being through it all? Or you just combated it through prayer only?
Just prayer, just in the prayer closet. And at the time, I was the secretary of our sisterhood in church.
Oh,
So how
wow.
I was doing it, I just don't know. I mean, and
You
for
didn't give
being,
up any roles at that time? You kept everything going as normal?
I kept most things going as normal. And then as a sisterhood secretary, if people were sick, I arranged meal trains for people. I helped with serving food. I did, different kind of celebrations and things at church. And there were times where I just couldn't. But it was something I loved to do, and that was a part of me that I didn't want to lose because I
Mhm.
needed to keep something for myself. And
Right,
so
right, right.
serving was something that made me feel good, and it was easy. I didn't have to make the
It
food.
was your outlet, so to
Yeah, I
speak.
just had to arrange it. So, yeah, so
Yes.
that was something that I kept doing.
Did you
And
ever feel afraid at any point going through this? Did fear ever enter in?
I was afraid that he was going to die. I would think about what it would be like to be alone, and I didn't want that. Even with the hard things. I loved being married. I loved being a wife. I'm very traditional and domestic, and I might fuss about, put your clothes in the hamper, but I'm a pick it up and do it. I loved being a wife. And now I want my man to be a man, but I loved that. And that would make me sad. My dad died very early, and I know how it devastated my mom, and I could just see myself devastated, losing him. And so that was something that I didn't want, that I would just take before the Lord. And the prayers that God gave me, I would pray over myself and I would pray over him. And the Lord, kept my heart, he kept my mind. He kept him. I can remember the first holiday we had. It was Thanksgiving. And this is a true supernatural experience, how God is present. So he had just had a chemo Tuesday. Thanksgiving, of course, is on a Thursday. And we just woke up crying. We were both in tears.
Mm.
And we watched this Christian movie, and we were down in our basement watching movies, and we were just crying and crying and crying. And then a friend was going to make us Thanksgiving dinner, just us two at her house, and we were getting ready to go out. And on my porch, huge white goose feathers, just like a whole flock of pure white feathers, covered the whole porch. And feathers can be like angels, a sign of angelic activity. I mean, it's just no way my porch should have been
Full
covered
of feathers.
from
Right.
feathers.
Right.
And at first I was thinking like, oh, I have a cat. I was like, oh, what did kitty boy do? And then I thought about it. I said, these are pure, these are white, these are beautiful. And because we were so broken and we had been crying together and just pouring out our suffering, that was a sign. And that was also the first Thanksgiving after my mom had passed. And
Okay.
so we were just broken, and God gave me a sign that I'm here with you. And so just like looking for those signs, I believe he does give us those signs
He
that,
does.
I'm with you.
He truly
Yeah.
does. When we really need it the most, he really knows.
Yes.
What would you say caregivers need more permission to feel or admit?
I would say that we're scared, and to be ready for whatever, to be ready for loss. I had to come to the place to say, and I tell this to people that I'm walking with through, grief, as a aspiring chaplain, a person who may have been in my situation. I had to get to the point and say, Lord, I thank you for loaning him to me, but
Mm.
he's yours. And when you're ready to take him, I release him. And that was the hardest place to come to
Yeah.
realize that, you know, he was on loan to me, and that whatever good and perfect gift I have in my life comes from the Lord. It's his. And when the Lord says, okay, this is mine, I have to release it. So getting to that place in his illness, that I just said, Lord, I'm going to fight with everything I got. I can stand before the Lord and say, I gave him my all. But if you want to release him, if he's yours, then I will usher your son into your presence, because that's what I did for my mom. When she passed, I just made it beautiful. I had music. I spent days with her, watching her favorite shows. She had a private hospice room, so whatever her favorite shows are, we were watching it. I would just be eating, and I was laying on the couch. They had set up a place for me, and just ushered her. And she passed the day after Mother's Day in
Oh,
2017.
wow.
I just come home, and I got the call. And so, but
I
yeah.
want you, if you don't mind, I know the end of
Mhm.
the story as it relates to your ex-husband, but whatever you feel open to share after you poured all of that into him and what came as a result, please share.
Yes, yes, I don't mind because I know I'm not the only one who has gone through this. So I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the chemo, because chemo can have an effect on people mentally. I don't know if he had a midlife crisis, and because he was healed, he just felt like he had a second wind. I don't know what it was, but
Mm-hmm.
he was not the same person after that. His last chemo was January of 2020, and he got the cancer-free diagnosis. And I don't know if he felt like he had a new lease on life, but he was a different person. I didn't even recognize him. And so um, that was very hurtful, because by this time I'm completely broke down. And I got a bad report from the doctor. I got a diagnosis of sarcoma, which is a ovarian cancer, a uterine cancer. And they could not really tell, unless, because the tumors were so large, um, unless they took my uterus.
Mm.
And so I went on an experimental treatment to shrink the tumors, um, but they grew back. I had a DNC, I had two fibroid surgeries, and they grew back each time. So was referred to the oncologist, OBGYN, and she was like, the best thing for you to do is to have a full hysterectomy.
Mm-hmm.
And I, was in my 40s. Still was hoping that we would have a child. We even made provisions like to freeze the egg and everything like that. That hopefully, Um, but when I got that diagnosis, I was like, well, but I didn't know, so I had to go through the operation. It came to find out that it wasn't what they thought it was, but I
Mm.
had to go through the complete
So it
surgery.
wasn't cancer?
It wasn't.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
And they
but I
only found out through the surgery.
through the surgery, and my
Okay.
uterus was so large, it was like I was 8 months pregnant, and the tumors kept growing back. But that's probably because of stress and everything that I was facing.
Could be.
And so I went through it. By this time, he was still, he was living his best life. And I can remember,
What do you
after
mean
that,
by living his best life, if you don't mind me asking?
he was he was doing any and everything he thought he could get away with doing.
But
That
you all were still married in the same
We were still
household.
married, still
Okay.
in the same household. I
Okay.
was oblivious to everything, because at this
Mm.
time I'm devastated. I'm calling people, making my peace with God, like, Lord, if it's my time, I'm ready to go. I'm tired, And so um I can remember being wheeled in. They had the, cap on me and everything. And the anesthesiologist was pregnant, and he was there, and he burst out crying. Oh, I wish we would have had a child. And they hadn't put me under yet. And I was like, oh my God, do I get off of this table? You
Mm.
know, like, why would he do that? Do I get off of this table? So I think his heart changed towards me after that, which was very devastating, because I'm the woman who was wiping his behind, and here, I'm
Understood.
being wheeled away, and I'm like, well, should I just unplug all this stuff and, we try again to have a child, or what do I do?
Right.
And then put my health at risk because we really didn't know what the outcome was going to be for me. I it probably would have been uterine cancer if I did not have my uterus removed,
Okay.
because um, I had such large tumors. And for them to keep growing back the way they kept growing back, I had 3 surgeries, and they grew back and they would grow back bigger to the point where they were like,
You
you
can't
have
keep
to
doing
do
this.
something. Yeah,
Right.
and that would cause me to have horrible menstrual cycles where I was just in bed most of the time, during that time. And so it was just, low blood,
Hmm.
anemia, my health was horrid. And so I didn't jump off the gurney when he had his meltdown about
Hmm.
children. I just was like, well, we had 15 years, and the last 5 of those 15 years he was going through chemo, so there was no having children there, so it's not all my fault. So I went on and I had the hysterectomy, and I've heard stories where men change after that. um I was getting used to the new me. I was 40, in late 40s, and afterwards I felt like an old woman. I didn't do HRT, but I had to get used to, you know,
What's
all
HRT?
hormone replacement therapy.
Okay.
I had to get used to a new normal. Every woman who had gone through menopause and everything said, "Look, honey, once you go through it, you're gonna feel so good," and you do. I'm like living my best life. It is the best thing. No cycles, no PMS, no this, no that. I am loving it. But I had to, as a young woman, grieve my childbearing years, and it was just taken from me. And then, to have my partner not understand that this is because I was ill. And I felt like, well, I done done everything for you. Now it's my turn.
Mm.
And, he wasn't there. And so that was a really, really hard thing for me to go through. I pretty much had to nurse myself back. You're not supposed to be doing a whole lot after, you
Right.
have a hysterectomy. And I didn't, my sister came for a couple days, and then everything was set up upstairs for me. But if I asked him to bring something to the stairs for me, either I was going to wait till the evening for it, or, I'd have to slide down myself. And so it was very difficult to see the change. I don't know what happened.
And
Uh,
so eventually you all ended up
mhm.
separating and
Yes,
divorcing
yes,
after going through so much together.
yes.
Heartbreaking, heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking. And I would say that I joke about, oh, well, if I knew all that, I wouldn't have been praying for him as hard as I did. But I look back, and the person that I am, I would do it again. Not for him,
Yeah.
but, you know, that's what you do when you love somebody. You
Absolutely.
step up to the plate, um,
Absolutely.
and I don't know, if because I was doing while I was going through it, I was like, did it spread to his brain? What's going on with him? I don't know, and I still don't know. That'll
I was
always,
going to say, you may never know,
yeah, that's a mystery. But um, I would
but
do
it's
it.
just sad to think,
Mhm.
when you
Yes,
are with someone through, I would say, one of life's biggest challenges. You think you're going to die. I think that's pretty huge in
yes,
anyone's life, you know,
yeah,
than
and it
to
took
end
me.
up where you are. But I can honestly say, a lot of times when it's very significant or heavyweight things that enter into a marriage,
Yes,
sometimes
Yeah.
unfortunately, this can be one of the outcomes because the weight of everything that you went through
Yeah.
didn't sustain you through it. I've
No.
seen it repeatedly. But out of that was birthed your book of prayer. Let's
Yeah.
talk about that. Put
Yes.
that book up there. Look, and everybody can get this book on Amazon.
Yes.
You
It's
got
a
to read what
Tom.
it is because it looks backwards.
Oh, okay. Well, it is
I
a
don't have
Tom.
my copy.
Yes, Atomic Prayers, Weapons of Mass Destruction, and it's a spiritual war boot camp for intercessors. And these are the prayers that I prayed for him to be well. And the Lord gave me these in my prayer closet, um, prayers that target each pathway that cancer is developed. And, I truly believe, like the word says, the death and life is in the power of the tongue.
Yes.
So, and who them who partake of it will eat the fruit thereof. So I was specific about speaking life, and I was specific about targeting each pathway of prayer of cancer to destroy the process of cancer. And it works. I know other people who have prayed, specifically for each pathway, and I believe in the power of prayer.
Well, I'm
So
going to tell you, I know some people now, full disclosure. Kenyetta was also one of the authors in When Cancer Knocks at Your Door. And she put in there just a little bit about the cancer journey of her husband, but the majority of it was the prayers. And I have had people say, "Oh my goodness, this was a welcome surprise. I thought it was going to be something else." And I get to the end of the book, and here's all these powerful prayers. So let me tell you, if you want to read some very powerful
yes,
prayers, get that book on Amazon. It
yes,
is amazing. You see
praise
what
the
God birthed out of all of that?
Yes, yes. I'm very thankful. And I'm very thankful that he is doing well and still cancer free because the gifts of God are without repentance.
Yeah.
And the Lord loves us, even in our mistakes. So, I thank God that he's doing well and he's still cancer free.
Now
And if
has
I, Mhm.
go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Go right
and
ahead.
if I had to do it again, I would. I mean, because
Yes,
that's what a person does, a wife does when she loves her husband.
absolutely, and well said. Has how has this experience changed the way you see yourself, or has it at all?
Well, when after, the breakdown of my marriage, my health, everything, I didn't even recognize myself. So keeping a part of you, if I had to do it all over again, and I don't even know how I would have because I was so busy and tied to taking care of people, but just keeping something of myself, going to get my nails done and, taking 5 minutes, just to do something for me, I think that was something that I missed because I was just constantly trying to take care of two people that I very much loved. And I didn't want to lose them, but I lost both of them anyway. And so that is another big thing that the Lord taught me is just to enjoy, whatever we have while we have it. And don't be afraid of loss. So I came out of that like really not fearing loss anymore. Like, what's the worst can happen? I was afraid that I was going to lose him, but that he would die from cancer. But, we end up breaking up anyway. So just being able to know and to stand in my own strength. And I
That was
had
something you learned about yourself. You didn't realize that before.
I would say because I truly loved being married. I'm a woman who loves relationships. I just I didn't even want to face that. That was the scariest thing to me. And when this happened, losing two people that meant so much to me back to back, that, and I was alone. I mean, just alone. And just finding out that, you know what? I'm not alone. God is with me.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that I had to nurse myself back to health. It took 4 years, 4 whole years. Mental health, emotional health, physical
Wow.
health. I started doing biohacking, reverse aging protocols.
What is biohacking?
Biohacking is, let's say, for instance, LeBron James. He still plays like he's in his 20s, but he's in his 40s.
Hmm.
And he spends millions of dollars on hyperbaric chambers and taking
Hmm.
peptides and this and that to play at that optimum level. So I started, just I got my chems done from the doctor, got my labs, and like, okay, where is there deficiency in my body? And I started looking at natural things that I could
Hmm.
take to help myself. And
Yes.
so I started doing that. I had long COVID also after I had like the worst cases of COVID. And I got to the point I couldn't half remember anything. And so I
Wow.
started taking like lion's mane and different things like that, different protocols. They call that nootropics. These are things that help ward off dementia and Alzheimer's and help with memory and focus. So I started doing that. I started taking cellular regeneration protocols, urolithin A, and I did a lot of research. And these are also things that I had my husband take, my ex-husband, when he was sick. He was taking his cancer medicine, his chemo, but I also was giving him apricot kernels, which are known to kill cancer cells, and some
Wow.
natural things. So I started giving him natural things as well. So, I do these things for cellular regeneration. Um, and because I, had that cancer scare, and, I had a complete hysterectomy, I just wanted to make sure that nothing would develop. So I still do anti-cancer protocol. So that's what I call biohacking, like just
Okay.
reversing.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
Mhm.
Now, we're coming to a close, so it's a couple things I would like for you to answer. What would you say to someone who has just become a caregiver and feels overwhelmed?
I would say your relationship with the Lord, that He is with you. Find your secret place. I did have some help. The people who would bring a meal or take my ex to the doctor for me. But basically, it was me and the Lord. And I could not have made it without Him. And He's the one who gave me the prayers to pray. I look back, I don't even know how I made it. And
Mm.
there were times that I can remember going to the grocery store, forgetting my purse. Like I was just
Mhm.
totally on autopilot. And,
Mhm.
He's the one that carried me. So having that walk with God, not taking it personal when the person you're caring for is not at their best, and just putting yourself in their place. I just wanted to make sure, like, if this was me laying here, how would I want someone to treat me?
Yes.
And
Yes.
not leaving that person by themselves. So I would say, as a caregiver, I walked through cancer with him. Like I said, when he went through chemo, when we got home, we both shut it down for like days. And if he was in the bed, I was right next to him. We walked through it together. Be willing to walk through that. And in that I found rest. I made my own rest. by doing that, like, look, this chemo week, what movies do you want to watch? And just made it, something that I could get some rest to, so if he would
Yes.
sleep, I would sleep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Timing is everything, and learning how to readjust what
Yes.
you thought was your normal
Mm.
routine coming into a new norm of
Yes.
routine. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's very hard for us to
Mhm.
do.
Yes.
Yeah, very true. What do you wish someone would have said to you in the beginning, if anything, when you started your caregiving journey?
I wish I knew how hard it was going to be. I knew it was going to be hard. I didn't know how hard, because I had so many things on my plate. Um, I wish I knew and was prepared for it. But I can remember our first chemo, and we were driving, and he was so angry I had to drive, and it was a Christian song that came on and said, "Thy will be done." And as I was driving, I was just crying. And I was like, Lord, I don't know what this is going to look like. I've never gone through chemo, um, or never knew anyone who had walked through this, but your will be done. And just accepting that each day, not looking at the long haul, but each day, and just getting through that one day. And I thank God for the nursing staff. We had Kaiser Permanente, and they were excellent. And just the different protocols. I mean, like when we went to chemo, they had snacks, and just being
Oh
able to
yeah, a
have
lot of snacks.
and snacks and talking to the
Mhm,
nurses. And we had a
mhm.
chemo dog. We had a Doberman named Misty. And by the time we finished playing and petting with Misty, the day was over.
Yeah,
And so,
distraction.
yes, yes. So having those happy moments, and like I said, like when I set up our chemo days, I'm like, okay, we got movies, and then I want to put a shout out. It's a company called Rock the Treatment. So we would have a rock the treatment basket. Sometimes that his sister would get, I would get, and it has all kinds of goodies. Like it would have a special lotion, and it would have nausea pops.
Mhm.
So he would be sucking on nausea pops, and they would have like nausea now later. So it's not like you're missing your treats. So we're watching movies, and I'm eating my snacks, and he's eating his snacks, and we made it fun. And
Yeah,
so if possible, make it fun. you
if you
know
can, yes,
can make
that's
it
good
fun.
advice. It
Yeah,
really, really is.
yeah.
What are
One thing
you
I
most?
would like to say, if you don't mind, everybody did warn us that halfway through or the fourth treatment would be rough. And let me tell you, that's when it got rough.
Yeah,
We was prepared. I mean, I don't know if all cancers are painful, but his cancer was so painful that just trying to manage the pain. And I was like, none of the medications that they were giving were working. And I was like, maybe CBD, or, I'm like, I'm trying to find somebody like, do I know anybody that got a little something? Like whatever to take away this
well, I
pain.
don't think it was legal back then,
And
right?
that wasn't legal, but the pain,
Yeah,
I never want to experience it, but it was a bone wrenching pain, and managing that pain. And we were warned that the fourth treatment or halfway through was going to be horrible. And it was. And that's after he did good those first three treatments. After that fourth treatment, he will be really sick
yeah.
afterwards.
It was well in your body at that time. I think that's why they say it. Answer
Yeah.
this final question for me, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Caregiving taught me.
Caregiving taught me that I am a representation of Christ. And it is the reason why I'm becoming a chaplain, because I saw the fruit of healing in someone's life. What the person does with the healing is between them and God. But I saw the positive fruit of a person being loved well, cared for well, treated well, to the point of thriving. And so I want to see that in more people's lives. And what the person does with it is between them and God. But that was such a joy to get a, clean bill of health, or to see that person strong and thriving. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
I'm sure it is. I can only imagine listening to your journey, how you felt. You want to always say you can put yourself in someone else's shoes, but I'm a believer in unless you walk those shoes, you really can't grasp it, uh,
Yeah.
the entirety of it. Well, Kenyetta, thank you so much for joining me. It has been my great honor and pleasure to
Thank you.
have you share your journey, and I am convinced that someone will be blessed by your journey and your
Thank,
story.
thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you for having me.
Good night.
Good night, darling.
Well, y'all, there you have it. Another great episode on Cancer Unmasked 360. Remember, I'm your host, Desi Waters. Until next time.